Attention musicians of all levels. It's not always easy picking out a song by ear. Sometimes you need a little help. Well, I have the app for you. Whether you're a professional musician or a beginner, Ultimate Guitar is an amazing app. For just $2.99, you get the chords and tabs on guitar, bass, or ukulele for over 1 million songs. They're all available at your fingertips. You also get tools like a tuner, metronome, chord library, lessons, videos, and more. You can find out any song you want. It also has like transpose button. It has auto scroll that you can change the speed to so you can play along with the song. A lot of the songs have the lyrics there so you can sing along with them. Ultimate Guitar is an amazing app. Just go to ultimateguitar.com or download the app to your phone today and start playing. Start playing any song you want. Ultimate Guitar, that's the place for you. Let's get down. Hey gang, are you new to this podcast? Have you subscribed on Spotify, Stitcher, or Apple Podcasts and realized that you can only access the 20 most recent shows on these platforms? Do you, my friend, want to binge on How Did I Get Here? Well, check out our archives that are available on the Podbean app. If you follow us on the Podbean app, we have every single show ever released on that platform. You'll also get all of your favorite shows like Fresh Air, WTF with Mark Maron, ID10T, the Michelle Obama podcast. All podcasts available there, and you can also access over 1,000 How Did I Get Here episodes. So, download the Podbean app from your app store and start listening today. Let's get down.
And you may ask yourself, well, how did I get here?
It's time for How Did I Get Here? And now here is your host.
Hello, I'm Johnny. I'm your host. Welcome to the show. I hope you guys all had a great weekend, whatever it is you did this weekend. I had a fantastic weekend. On Friday night, I finally got to play with my band for the first time since September of 2019, playing my own songs with an amazing band. They did a fantastic job, man. They approached that stuff with care and with soulfulness. I don't know, it was great. I was blown away, and I had a great time. The bell sounds were amazing. All the people that came out was fantastic. A bunch of musicians came out. Great friends of mine came out. People came in from out of town, and yeah, it was just a fantastic show. And playing at 310, man, I'll tell you what, man, those guys are top notch. Everybody there is accommodating and easy to work with, and that place is just first class. Fantastic backstage, fantastic crew working everything, the sound, the lights, the visuals in the back. Yeah, man, just want to thank the band. Want to thank the Bell Sounds. Emily and Noel came up and sang some songs with us too. They were fantastic. If you don't know the Bell Sounds, get out and see them. Check them out at thebellsounds.com. Fantastic experience, man. If you live in Austin, go to 310, see shows. It's a great place to see shows, and I want to thank everyone for coming out. That was just a fantastic, fantastic experience. I just felt like $1 million after the show. Just felt like, oh man, I'm doing the thing. I'm doing the thing again with the band, and I'm playing my tunes, and people are digging it. It was just fucking great. So anyway, it was great. The rest of the weekend I was spent, though. It was an intense weekend. Or intense week before that. You know, getting ready for that show, doing all the podcasts, Skyrocket stuff, Austin Music Foundation stuff. It's all firing on all cylinders at all times. And now Sunday, I took it easy too. I went and had lunch with some friends and went to the grocery store. And now I'm doing this podcast intro. Going to put the show together for you guys. I have a great show for you guys today. Scott Tournét, front person for the eclectic brass world beat psychedelic band Elektric Voodoo, is my guest. They're from San Diego. The band is based in San Diego. Even though Scott moved over to the East Coast during COVID to be closer to family. He's got a child. Anyway, Scott's a fantastic dude, man. He's the former Grace Potter and the Nocturnals guitar player. He was co-wrote a lot of their songs and was with them for a long time, over a decade, I think. And left the band to go and put his own stamp on Afrobeat. You know, music inspired by Fela Kuti, but put through the Scott Tournét filter to make it his own. They're going to be out playing shows again. They have a brand new album coming out on August 20th. It's called Telescope. They also just dropped the title track from the album as a single. It's called Telescope. Find them at electricvoodoo.com. Scott and I have a great conversation, man. He's a great, great, great musician. Amazing. Great songwriter. And Electric Voodoo is just a fucking great band. All right? So you'll hear their tune Telescope right now, and then enjoy my conversation with the amazing Scott Tournét from Electric Voodoo. Let's get down. Dude, your new record is awesome. It is great,
Thanks, man.
And you really I don't know, man. Like you're a great songwriter in the sense of a guy that writes songs that have structure and all this kind of thing, but also you're able to incorporate all of this sort of like African. Like I see that Fela Kuti was a big influence on you. But,
sure.
But you're able to do it very organically and really naturally. It doesn't sound weird in any way. Like it sounds great.
Well, thank you. First off, I appreciate those words, and thank you for listening. That means a lot. After working on something for that long and then sitting on it for another 9 months, it's amazing to have people hear it and realize that it's like not just in your own brain.
Yeah. Are you going to get out and do shows when it comes out in August? Yeah.
We are. Yeah, we're going to be touring all of August.
And where are you now? You're in San Diego?
I'm actually in Maryland.
Oh, okay.
Random side story. Basically, this is where my wife grew up. And in the middle of the pandemic, we moved back here for a million different reasons. But so the band is still in San Diego. So I have to fly out, to go rehearse for a week and then go tour. And that's kind of the new normal for us.
How's that? I mean, you went there, you're closer to your family or to her family and stuff. And
mine. Yeah.
You're from Vermont, right?
Yeah, exactly. So now I can drive to see my parents still live there. They're in their 70s now. So, we've been kind of feeling the move coming on, and the 2020 sped it up.
Yeah. I see you work with a lot of different people on different projects and records and stuff. Do you just fly out and do, like, it looks like a lot of this stuff might have been done in like Nashville or something. Is that right?
Well, I was in the band Grace Potter and the Nocturnals.
That's right.
And that's where most of that stuff happened, was during the 13 years or 14 years. It was quite a long time that I was in the band. So, I mean, so there was a few records made in LA. I think actually all of our records were made in LA now that I think about it. But we did some recording sessions in Nashville. We wrote with Dan Auerbach in Nashville and did a couple songs with him. You guys, I'm in Austin, and you guys definitely sound like you could be a band that's from here. Or that band sounds like that. Not you guys, but your former band sounds I was like, yeah, we loved Austin. We did pretty well there. We played the Stubbs outdoor venue a few times. We kind of graduated to that level, but, made our way up through the smaller clubs. And yeah, we did really well in the South and the Southeast. We had kind of a roots rock kind of driven sound, I would say, for part of our career at least.
And what an about face when you left the band, like artistically, you really turned around.
Well, I'd like to think that there's still some stuff in there. You know what I mean? There's some kind of a linear journey. It's just kind of like the stuff like I was omitting with the Nocturnals. All of a sudden I kind of like let in. Because it just didn't really make sense with the Nocturnals. There wasn't the sound we were chasing. It kind of wasn't really where my head was at either. I studied a lot of Afrobeat and more far out music and jazz and stuff like that in college and got pretty dense into that. And then I like did an about face to join the Nocturnals, and was kind of more into like the bands, Little Feat, you know, Taj Mahal,
70 Stones,
big time 70 Stones, early Neil Young kind of stuff. Like I was like, you know, throw away the pedal board, guitar into a tube amp, and like, you know, I got into open tunings and slides guitar quite a bit. So
yeah,
I love that stuff. You know, there's so much stuff to love, you know, it's hard to, you know, to do everything. And also like not everything always fits in every project, you know?
Right. What else do you do outside of Elektric Voodoo?
I've made a couple solo records. I haven't really done much outside of Elektric Voodoo just because I'm the main songwriter.
Right.
So pretty, you know, only until like this last year I had some time off and I started writing more music again. So I might do something under a different name or a solo thing, you know, at some point. But mostly it's just been a lot of work with Elektric Voodoo. You know, it's a pretty big undertaking.
Yeah, it is. Sorry, go ahead.
No, and we started from scratch, you know, going from like the Nocturnals and like a tour manager and all this stuff, front of house sound, merch. It's like I started Elektric Voodoo. It's like I bought the van, I booked the hotel rooms, I was like advancing the shows, you know, like that was a lot of work. I was doing publicity for the first two records. You know, I just was like, I went all the way in the other direction, you know. And it was cool. It was humbling and challenging.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it is. It's always weird to go from people doing things for you doing them yourself. And it is like a lot of shit to do. Yeah. Yeah.
But it was good. I needed it. I was a little spoiled, if I'm honest, you know, with like 13 years of people telling me that I'm great and, you know, having a guitar tech. And it's like, I didn't even like know my pedal board, you know, I was like, the pedal broke at a show and I was like, what's happening? You know, I was such a little pussy. So like right now I'm like redoing my pedal board. I'm like up under there with Velcro and zip ties. And I don't know. I just kind of like changed a lot, you know, with changing the group.
Yeah. Yes. It's a 6 or 7 piece. How many pieces is it?
Yeah. It can, I mean, it's been 6 to 8.
Okay.
Depending on the tour. And, you know, we have, you know, that big of a group, you have some people that are drifting on the edges.
Right. Yeah.
And also like sorry about that.
No, that's all right.
I realized that if I touch my ear, I leave the meeting. So
okay.
There you go. My bad.
So you were saying that the number of people in the group can change because with that many people, there's people that have other things going on and stuff like that.
Yeah, totally. And also, yeah, so we'll have, sometimes we've done a whole tour with 2 percussionists and a drummer. You know, we've done a couple gigs with no percussion. That's not ideal for our sound, but you know, you have to adapt.
No, because it's so rhythmically complex, like what's going on underneath. I mean, it's really, and it has that sort of thing where all of the things making a rhythm make one giant, very complex rhythm. Like Latin music's like that, you know, normally really rhythmic music where each person has their own little thing that they're doing.
Yeah, it's really cool. Yeah, and I'm not like great at that. That was our first percussion player who joined. Ty Kiernan was pretty studied in that area. You know, He came in and kind of shows like, well, then we do this, and then one guy does this, and then the other person does that. And because my stuff was a little simpler. I mean, I understood like the Fela Kuti Afrobeat style guitars and like a shekere, like a kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then just those little like clave sticks that are always like, did it.
Yeah.
Like that was pretty much like I mean, I could get the bass, the keyboards, and the 2 guitar part and those things working. But beyond that, like denser layers, bringing in Latin and Afro-Cuban stuff, like that's where I was a little over my head.
So what did you do to do that? Like, how did you
Well, I brought it. Ty Kiernan, the percussion player, the first percussion player, joined the group, and he kind of like would stack percussion on top of stuff. For the first record, I recorded pretty much all myself. I didn't have the band yet.
Oh wow, listen
and
to
then
that.
he was he was the first person to come in, and then that's where like some of that density beyond maybe the straight up Afrobeat stuff showed up.
Right. So, so you're from Vermont?
I am, yeah.
Yeah, you were born there
originally. I was born in Massachusetts, technically.
Okay.
About a couple miles from Vermont, but yeah, I grew up in Vermont.
What did your parents do?
Not music.
No?
Yeah. My dad had a million different jobs. I mean, he worked for BMI, oddly enough, early in his career. But it was more like collecting money from clubs and stuff. I used to go out on the road with him sometimes. And then my mom was like athletic director and like coach. And like, so we were like a huge sports family, actually.
Okay. Did you played sports?
All the way through high school. Yeah.
Which ones did you play? All three? Baseball?
Well, there was no football, oddly enough. I know that's probably crazy to hear in Texas, but
it is.
We were so small. I went to a school, I graduated with 41 kids, it's tiny. So we just had soccer, baseball, basketball.
Okay. Were you good at them?
Yeah.
I mean, was that any time your dream?
It's hard to tell when there's 41 kids, in your class. So I was like, I made every team. I was okay,
But you just kind of had to be there to do that, right?
Pretty much, yeah.
So, how did you find music, or how did music find you?
I went to college, like 45 minutes away to a state college, Castleton State University in Vermont. And this was, I'm dating myself, but 94 was my freshman year of college, 94, 95. So this was still pretty pre-internet. So 45 minutes away was a culture shock.
Right.
There was like no bands in my hometown. I guess the other thing I should mention is I grew up with no electricity for a large portion of my youth.
What?
On like 35 acres in the middle of the woods in Vermont. Yeah, that one always surprises people.
What did you do, man? Like, what was your life like?
I mean, eventually we had a generator. We ran a TV off of a car battery. And over time, the picture would get smaller as the battery would die. And it would just like to the point where it was like a little square within a square.
That is awesome.
Yeah, it was not awesome when you're like 13 and like want to have a friend over, but you guys are weird.
Well, dude, like with no electric, it gets cold as shit up there, man.
Well, I mean, we had a wood stove.
Okay.
I mean, it was, we stayed cozy. Yeah. I mean, although it was like the majority of the heat was where the wood stove was. So like if your bedroom was on the other side of the house, mornings were freezing cold, and then we would have, so we had a water tank. So you would take showers, but like if you were the unlucky one, you could be showering and the water would run out like mid shower at like 6 a.m.
Covered in soap.
You have to, someone like, please turn on the generator. Yeah. Yeah. It was a unique experience, which, like I said, I didn't appreciate at the time, but as I've gotten older, I realized it was kind of neat and cool and probably instilled some creativity because there's a lot of hours alone.
Yeah.
Or like bored, it's like no iPads, you had to just like, I would read through all the books we had in our house or cruise the woods or, just have to like entertain yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. I had close to that. I had times in my life where I lived in giant spaces in a very natural way, but there was cool. Usually electricity, which is good.
Yeah. I mean, we had like, eventually we figured out how to do it. We started glamping in a way, where it was like gas stove, gas fridge, gas lights, like it wasn't so bad.
Let me ask you now, do you camp? Is that something that you do? Is that part of your thing? Or are you like, fuck that?
No. Yeah, you kind of go one of two ways, I think.
Yeah. That's my thing is like, no way. I actually just went to Marfa. Have you ever been there? Oh, they have this place that's like this. Oh, it's real cool. They have like teepees with like fireplaces and electricity and shit.
Cool.
And even that was too much for me.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a huge outdoors person. Definitely not.
No. So you found music in college. Like, what were you listening? Did you listen to music growing up? Like,
I listened to like, rap music, what it was then called, pre-hip hop. It was like, my brother was like the hippest kid in town. He was like Kevin Bacon in Footloose, kind of, he was my idol, he's 3 years older than me, and he was just cool as shit. And he had like a collection of rap tapes, like a really nice collection. He was the kind of kid that like would like save all his money and like mow lawns and like get nice stuff. Like I didn't. So he was.
But
go ahead.
Just real quick, like he had to. Where did he go to get these tapes? Like must have been a pilgrimage back then. You know what I mean?
I mean, I think the town over had like a department store. We had like Ames in our area, and so it would come in somehow. I don't know. He just was like, he knew where to get the cool shit. He had like the Air Jordans and like. And had like, so it was like NWA, EPMD, Too Short, just stuff like that. That was like that, like mid 80s, like late 80s, early 90s. And of course, like Beastie Boys and LL Cool J.
Can I ask you something? Like, as somebody that lived like on 35 acres, like, in the way that you did, with which what I presume is probably a happy household. Was it a good? Yeah.
My parents are still together. I mean,
when you heard NWA, what were you like? Holy shit! What is going on over there?
I mean, I don't think I took in the full gravity of it, being a little like white kid on in the middle of Vermont. Like, I think it was just cool that they were like swearing,
right?
And it was you knew there was something dangerous about it, kind of something that like the parents wanted you to stay away from. So like you gravitated towards.
Yeah.
But what I realized, the reason partially why I mentioned that, so what I realized when I got to college, I started hearing like, I mean, it was just like, college 101 music, like Jimi Hendrix, Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd, Grateful Dead, all the regulars. But I started hearing like Jimi Hendrix licks. I was like, oh, that's from like the Two Live Crew record.
Oh,
like,
right.
Like that shit's like. And so that's like how I first, and I realized I kind of liked a lot of the music that they were sampling. I mean, a lot of like the Rick Rubin produced stuff was like Led Zeppelin beats, And I realized I was drawn as much to that as I was kind of like the lyrics.
What were you going
more so?
What were you going to school for at the time?
To not work a job or go to the military. No idea, man. Completely lost, very immature, had no clue. Just went to college because that's what, you do.
Right.
And drifted and changed majors like 4 times. And then by junior year, realized like I was obsessed with guitar and music, and like I learned it my freshman year. I picked up a guitar a little bit and then just like was like a moth to the flame. Yeah.
You remember that guitar? What was it? Do you still have it?
No. I mean, the first stuff was like acoustics that like everyone down the hall played. That was kind of the thing.
Right.
It was like, or everyone had a guitar. So I would go to like one guy's room and learn like, Toad the Wet Sprocket songs.
Yeah.
And then go on acoustic. And then the next guy had like, an electric, and he was doing like the kind of the Tesla, like more cheesy kind of stuff. Yeah. And then the next guy down the hall, I really liked, Jared, because he had like the Led Zeppelin poster, and so he would teach me like When the Levee Breaks, but he would just have me play rhythm. Like I didn't get to solo for another like year and a half.
Did you?
I loved it.
That's awesome. Did you take like formal lessons?
Eventually, I really struggled with all that. I was one of those people that subscribed to that, like, Hendrix didn't know, music theory, and fell into that hole for about a year or two. Then, like, took lessons from this hippie guy who kind of like led me in and showed me some cooler shit. He turned me on to like New Orleans music and like the Meters and some funk, you know, opened the door to funk, which was cool. And then I had a friend who kind of like tricked me into learning the modal system. And then that kind of was like, oh, actually music theory is kind of amazing.
Yeah.
You know?
So did you get in any bands or did you perform anywhere at that time or?
Yeah, I had a college band. I had a garage. I was the guy with the garage and I had all the, like, so there was like a bass amp, drum set, you know, the whole rig, and I had a 4-track.
Oh, that's cool.
So that's where I really, where I cut my teeth.
What 4-track did you have?
It was one of those little Tascams.
With just the two
like
volume things?
Totally.
Yeah. It's my favorite.
I love that thing.
Yeah, man.
So I would make, you know, tapes and, you know, just do like rhythm tracks and stuff. And I was in a band and, you know, we just played like some college parties and shit and never really, you know, went. It was like a year and then everyone drifted off. It was a pretty small school. So like the bass player was like, you know, Green Day, you know, the lead guitar player was like, wanted to be in like The Cure. I didn't know what I wanted to be. And like the drummer wanted to be Mitch Mitchell, you know, so it was like,
sounds like a disaster. Yeah.
It was. Yeah. So it was just kind of like, well, that guy plays bass, you know, it wasn't like on the merits of us like connecting. It was just like, we're just filling holes.
Right. Did you get to see any shows? Did you go out and like get inspired by any music during that time?
Yeah. I mean, my first show was Bob Dylan. That honestly, I became a huge Dylan fan, but that first show didn't really move me that much.
When was it? Was it in that early 90s time?
Yeah, it was like 94. It wasn't like a bad show. It was just kind of like, at that point, like, you know, his lyricism, I was a little slow with lyrics, you know, the music came first.
Right.
For a long time, I couldn't even tell you what the lyrics were to, you know, most of the stuff I was listening to.
Right.
I kind of more just went for like feel and like mood of like, you know, how something made me feel.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I mean, honestly, 90s in Vermont, it was Fish. You know, it's like there's no way around it. That was like the biggest band on the planet, you know, in that area. It was like they were massive, you know. It was like I always say like that was like our version of like rave culture. You know, like any kind of like far out culture, you know. It was because we didn't have it, you know. There were no raves in Vermont. So, you know, we had limited things, you know, in that era and in that area. So it was like Fish. Oh yeah. Yeah. There's people selling, you know, mushrooms and ganja goo balls. It was like, you know, you're talking to a 19-year-old kid and it's like, let's go.
Yeah, totally, man.
Yeah.
You know, what's interesting is I feel like that community, that jam community would embrace, Electric Voodoo.
I mean, we're on the periphery of it.
Yeah.
I mean, I was very in that world with Grace Potter and the Nocturnals. I mean, we played all those festivals. So, I mean, we've gotten write-ups from Relics and Grateful Web and all this stuff. I never really feel all the way in any community, to be honest with you. I always kind of balk at like, what is it? I don't want to join any group that would have me as a member, you know, as they say. I've never been a joiner.
I think that's cool, man. But at least there is that avenue for you. You know, it's difficult now. Like, you know, when you were coming up and I don't know exactly like the early 2000s when you started playing with Grace Potter.
Yeah,
it was a different world.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I guess a lot has changed in almost 20 years, you know?
Yeah. I mean, like all across the board, like, you know, you think about it, like when you went to college, if like Pearl Jam did an iMac commercial,
right,
that would have been fucking
certainly in that
heresy.
Yeah, I liked that era.
Me too,
I'm still
man.
Kind of like, yeah, I wish it was still like that, but at a certain point, you know, it's like as a musician, I think a lot of us have been like, well, what the fuck am I like, why am I having to be the one to hold up the nobility here when people are like, stealing our music and we're getting kind of fucked over at a certain point. It's kind of like, I'm even on like, I'm into recording. So like I'm on like these plugin boards and people are like, don't steal plugins. And like, you put in back in the day, the DVD, and it was like, you better not steal this or the FBI is going to get you. And it's like, well, music's free though.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. You could go buy a cassette to cassette recorder like that. And as soon as they could, all computers came with like CD burners.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, but I feel you, I loved that era when like, Neil Young was picking on Michael Jackson, for the Pepsi commercial and like, it's easier when you're Neil Young and you own like a sweet ranch with like 200 acres in California.
True. That is true. Yeah. Okay. So you're going to Fish shows, you're kind of playing around, and you graduated college?
Not that college. I tried to major in music. It was awful because I couldn't read music. It was just not the right fit at all. Because it was kind of like a classical program. And so I stopped going to class, just started like skipping school and making tapes and like, just playing music like 8 hours a day, listening to music all the time, like just sponging it because I knew I was late to the party and I had to catch up.
Right.
Because at that point, in my brain, I had made the decision that I'm a musician for life. I hadn't really told anyone that yet.
Right.
I think I told a girlfriend and she laughed at me, and that kept me going for 10 years. And then, so I just kept trying to play in the band, and I stayed at that school for like what would be 4 years. Even though I went to school for like 2.5 years, I just lived in the town and played in the band. And then all of a sudden all my friends were moving away. I was like, oh shit. And then I discovered Goddard College in Vermont, which is like no grades, clothing optional, super crazy hippie school. And it's where some of the guys from Fish went and studied music. And I was like, this place is perfect. And they let me in. And so then, I went there with kind of a renewed sense of, belief in education,
right,
so to speak. I'd always been a terrible student, and then I realized there you can study whatever you want. They had a recording studio, they had a jazz workshop, a course on like American music, like roots and blues stuff, and I just fucking loved it, man. I took drum lessons, guitar lessons, composition, class, and just took it to it like a fish to water.
No joke, no pun intended.
Oh yeah, good one.
Like a PHIS.
I didn't realize they'd be coming up so much in my story, but they are a part of it.
So did you have a band up there?
I did. Yeah, I had a band called the Big Huge, and we weren't as big and huge as we wanted to be.
What kind of stuff were you doing?
We played it. I mean, at that point, it was definitely like somewhat derivative of like Fish, but not really. It also like I had gotten into like Muddy Waters and stuff. It was like a hodgepodge of like when you try to make like soup out of like all the things that's left in your fridge.
Right. Right.
Not always the best ingredients that go together, but I think it was like that era of like, let's try anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. Here's our reggae song. Like, we should not be doing reggae.
Were you wearing shorts on stage?
Like twice.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm a pretty like fierce opponent of shorts on stage.
Me too.
But,
now,
a couple pairs of cargos.
Yeah.
Now. Did you wear shorts on stage?
I'm a little older than you, so I had like the 1989, 1990, those. And plus I live in Texas and you're playing 3-hour shows in sweaty ass places in the summer. But it was still a style, It was still I was still consciously doing it. It wasn't just because of the weather. I was, I'd never do it again. There was one point in the early 90s where I was like, you can't do that. You got to wear pants, man.
Well, San Diego, it was tricky because like half my band was like, what do you mean wear pants on stage? Like, it's just like, it's a very short and flip-flop society out there.
Yeah, it is. All right, so you're up there playing around, going to Goddard, it's called?
Yeah, yep.
And did you graduate from there?
I did graduate from there.
With a degree in music?
With technically liberal arts, I would say, but with a focus in playing composition was kind of my focus.
Then what did you do? What was the next move after that?
So the school actually went under, like the semester after I left. They're still alive now, but like the on-campus program died. I should say there was like 110 kids on campus at that school. It was super tiny. So once the on-campus program died, so did our fan base, Right. And that the band was kind of dying on the vine. So I had just met this girl, and she, we got together and fell in love, and she was still in college up in northern New York at St. Lawrence University, and I went and moved in with her. She had an apartment, and kind of just like was threw it to the wind, so to speak, as far as like a music career or anything. And just ended up, and that's like kind of in the middle of nowhere, 10 miles from Canada, cold, rural. And I started teaching guitar lessons up there just to like, pay the bills, and joined this band she was singing in, cause she was a singer, this like jazz funk hip hop band as a bass player, just kind of like on a lark, it was kind of like, well, we need a bass player. Like, I was like, what the fuck? It's like, so that always kind of gave me this sense of like, sometimes it's okay to do things that aren't so linear. It's like we have your goal, and I think we're trying to achieve it. But like sometimes those like left-handed moves kind of then turn into like somehow you arrive at that main goal.
Right.
So the drummer in that band was this guy, Matt Burr, who was playing drums with Grace Potter, and they had just kind of gotten together as a couple. They ended up getting married. And so that kind of led me to that. And then to play with her, when I first met her, like I knew she was talented, but it wasn't like, she was kind of doing like Bonnie Raitt covers and like Joni Mitchell covers on like a kind of a cheesy like keyboard with like, like an 80s sound, and playing like brunches and stuff, it was like,
right.
So it wasn't like, this is the gig. Like that was also another like, yeah, sure. I'll come down and play slide guitar on like 3 or 4 songs and like say, hey, and that's kind of how that started.
How did that thing turn into a real band?
Me and the drummer and I shared, like right when I was getting heavy into those 70s records I mentioned before, he was also kind of like getting into them. And Grace's parents had many of those records. So she was like, oh yeah, I know that. Like I've heard this, like my parents have this record. And so kind of like the three of us along with my girlfriend at the time, just got really into like vinyl, and would go to Ottawa and go record shopping. So we became like couple buddies. Like kind of just like friends really before like having like a company together or whatever.
Right.
And, which I like. I think that's such a nice way for something to evolve,
Yeah.
And so we would listen to the records. And so I think through that, the sound we started to get a little more specific with the sound of like, hey, let's ditch the 80s cheesy keyboard. Let's get a B3 organ, and like, let's get a Wurlitzer, and let's like start to sound like these records that we like, like have the drums really dry sounding, or like put a towel over the snare drum.
Yeah.
Like that was we started to kind of like vibe on that. So that was kind of the first evolution into, what we kind of became But even then we were kind of the uncool band at school. Like we weren't like hip. And like what we were doing was not like, oh, cool, they put a towel over the snare drum. Like,
right. It's kind of like
covering a Little Feat song.
Right. That's like the thing that you hear about, like the Black Crowes, like when they very first emerged with their thing, people were like, this isn't, I mean, eventually they came around to it, but when it first started coming out, it was like, are you kidding me? Like, this is a weird time for you to be doing this. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Hey, Aerosmith.
Yeah.
You know, what's going on?
Exactly.
Yeah, totally. But you know, we were so hot, you know, hyped on it. Like we thought it was so cool, fucking cool. Like this is the stuff, man. We were like listening to a lot of like JJKL records.
Yeah.
Like that was we were just getting really excited about that music.
Yeah.
And we're, you know, really, I mean, imitating it, I would, you know, ultimately, is kind of what we understood later. But I think sometimes you have to go through a period of imitation.
Yeah.
You know? So, yeah. And so like, you know, we would play like Thursday or Wednesday night at like the college cool venue. You know, we couldn't get a Friday or a Saturday.
Right.
So then, the drummer was a real go-getter. You know, he was one of those guys. He got on the phone, he made up a fake name and like became a booking agent and booked us a summer tour, that first summer. But it was like art galleries and like, brunches and like a couple, like, you know, like 7 o'clock at like the rock club, you know,
right,
before
right.
like the opener and
right.
So it's some pretty terrible like shows. And like, we were just like, we weren't really treated as like a real band in a way. I don't know if it was like having a female singer thing or like what the deal was or like what we were doing stylistically, but it kind of took us a year to kind of get taken seriously, I think.
Yeah. And then you did. I mean,
yeah. And then it happened pretty damn fast. And we got a booking agency, Rosebud Agency, and they booked like Taj Mahal, Mavis Staples, Robert Cray. He booked JJ Cale, you know, some stuff like that. And so that was some of our first real big shows was, opening for Robert Cray in Florida for like 3,000 people, you know?
Wow.
It was great. And we would sell like 200 CDs, you know? Like
yeah.
It was like, holy shit. You know, we were actually making like pretty decent money, like all of a sudden on that kind of stuff, you know?
Yeah.
And then like, we did a small tour with Taj Mahal and that was like amazing. You know, I was a big fan. I am a big fan of his and it was kind of an honor opening for him and sitting at his feet, you know, in a way, learning.
So, I don't know. So you ended up doing that for 12 or 14 years?
For a long time. Yeah. We took a long, journey through it. So then we signed to a major record label, Hollywood Records, which was a huge jump from art galleries and brunches.
Yeah.
Big change. And it was hard, to be honest with you. It's like, it was exciting, but like, all of a sudden we were in LA with like a producer,
right,
and a big time engineer and lots of opinions and expectations. And we had produced our first record, Nothing But the Water, in the barn at my college. And we'd done it. We had a guy who was a great engineer come in and do record us with he had a mobile unit. But like we were in charge of everything, of like how the songs were going to go and what the sounds were. And
now you got guys telling you got to make a first single.
Yeah, fucking engineer coming in to tell the bass player to play eighth notes on the chorus because that's what you got to do to get on the radio. And I was just like, I don't know. It kind of gave me a bad feeling. Like and it was crazy because we were recording in like the sweetest studio at like Alicia Keys was next door. And like,
what studio was it?
I'm spacing on the name. It was in Glendale. It wasn't like an established, like one of these like, Sunset Sound kind of studios. Right. It was kind of newer. So I'm spacing on what the name was, but like the Scorpions came in one day.
Right.
It's like, what the fuck? There's like fresh squeezed orange juice and like bagels every morning. And I could go rent any guitar or amp I ever dreamed of.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden I have 15 amps and 15 guitars and I can't choose which one. And I'm not having any fun. I was like, okay. I
had a similar experience to that.
Really?
Yeah. But I was at Sunset.
Really?
Yeah, I was signed to Lars Ulrich's label, like his Vanity label. My band was, and we in 1998. But our record came out like in the summer of 2000 when he was fighting Napster. So there was that was a weird thing. But I do remember that whole thing of like, we ended up scrapping the record that we made in LA because we had kind of gotten lost. Like you can get lost.
Yeah. Oh, easy.
It's big
very
shit,
easy to get lost.
and so many people all of a sudden telling you, you need to try this, and everyone's got to use Mesa Boogies now.
yeah, exactly. I learned a lot. It's not like everything the producer and the engineer, they weren't wrong about everything, but they definitely fucked up our vibe.
And that's a good way to say
it. I learned a lot.
I feel I feel like when people in our situation tell this story, it should be finished with, it's not like they ruined our it's not like they weren't doing anything good. It's not like they were evil people. It's just that it fucks up your vibe.
That's what it is. Yeah, the producer, it was his first like big shot at producing. And he's a good guy, and he's talented. He just kind of like micromanaged it to the point where it kind of like sucked the life out of it. And we were a band we were messy and sloppy and alive, and that was kind of the beauty of the band. It was like Grace has a voice that kind of like, you don't need auto-tune. Like her voice is polished, or like it's very accurate. Yeah. So, and our music wasn't always accurate. Like, I was a little out of tune. The drummer was a little behind the beat or ahead of the beat. Like, but that was kind of what made it exciting. I feel like that was the contrast of those two things. And her playing could be, guitar playing was a little out of tune or sloppy and but we didn't keep any of that,
Yeah. It's funny because those are the things that they signed you for. You know what I mean? Oh no, they're dangerous. Music. You don't know what's going to happen. And like, all right, so first thing we want to do is put your drummer on a click.
Exactly.
First, let's just suck the vibe out of the whole thing. All right, let's.
I know.
Let's start by doing that. That's how hit records are made, man.
I know, it's funny. That was rough. It was a rough time for us, but at the same time, all these crazy things were happening. We were playing all the Tonight shows,
right?
And, big, things were happening. We went on summer tour with the Black Crowes, and Government Mule for a couple months. Befriended Warren Haynes, played with him a lot. Like, that was exciting as a guitar player.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like a parallel existence where it was like amazing and like, we're blowing up and selling out venues in our hometown and be on TV. So like all of a sudden people are like, oh wow, you do have a job.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, but then we'd go to LA and it would be like, all the execs would show up to the show and like ruin the vibe backstage. We always had bad shows in LA. And so it's kind of this weird parallel thing where I was like dreading recording, but I love being on the road, Right.
So when you left the band, did you move to San Diego then? Or
I moved to San Diego during the course of being in the band. I met a girl again.
Yeah.
And who now is my wife. We've been together for over a decade.
Oh, congratulations.
And thank you. Yeah. And I met her in Charleston, South Carolina, and she moved to San Diego on a whim. She was like 23 at the time, and And then I was just spending all my time off of tour with her out there. So I just moved out there. And we were also kind of like operating out of LA a fair amount as well. So like recording stuff would happen out there, you know?
Yeah.
So it just kind of made more sense. And I was kind of ready to get out of Vermont and, you know, escape the winters. And I always wanted to live in California.
Right. One more question about the Grace Potter and the Nocturnals. When you guys first went to LA, did you stay at the Oakwood?
Yes.
Yeah, baby. Yeah.
That was
too,
where
man.
we made the painful record. I mean, just being at fucking Oakwood for like 2 months with no car. Like,
Oh, you didn't have a car?
We had like one car for the whole band.
Yeah, so do we.
And it was like, you know, it was just miserable.
For those of you listening that don't know, the Oakwood is this 26, I think it's 26 buildings on this giant property right by the Warner Brothers studio.
That's funny.
Yeah, like right at the line of Paramount what's it called? Burbank and Hollywood. Right there, where like Forest Lawn is and shit like that.
It's where all like the child stars go to live, or like people like live there during pilot season. It's definitely like buildings full of desperation.
It is. That's what it is. It's such a fucked up scene, man. There was a guy that was murdered there, like in the apartment, like on a floor below us when we were there. I'm just laughing because it was just so weird. Like the scene was just weird there. And they have plates, like your apartments are fully furnished and they have like sheets and towels and all that stuff. It's just, and it has no vibe.
None. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It's like stayed. It's like, you know, there's just white popcorn ceilings for building after building, you know? Yeah, we were going to the studio for like 10, 11 hours a day, working like 6 days a week. And then like going back to Oakwood. And I just remember being like, wow, like I'm in a dream here.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, yeah, so I mean, we made more fun records. They were like a better experiences. Just that first one was kind of a harsh wake up.
Yeah, but the Oakwood is involved in a lot of this. Nirvana's first, like when they did Nevermind, they lived at the Oakwood and stuff.
That's what everyone said. Yeah.
So, all right, let's get to you. You're out of the Grace Potter and the Nocturnals, and so what did you do? Like, you didn't start this band right away. What'd you do?
No, I didn't. I had no idea what I was going to do. It was a little frightening, to be honest with you. Luckily, I had saved a little bit of money, you know, enough to kind of connect the dots, you know, or to like, you know, take a couple years to like build something new. So, you know, I had started working on some of the music like right before I left the Nocturnals, and that's when I kind of stumbled on this formula of like, you know, Fela Kuti and inspired music, but like combining it with, you know, 3-4 minute songs that have a verse, chorus, and a bridge or whatever.
Right.
I was kind of chipping away at it. And then I kind of like stumbled on it with this song off the first record. The song Expectation was the first one that kind of arrived. And I was like, whoa, like this is exciting. You know, I was like, I felt excited, like I had found something new. And then I kind of just went off that feeling and did, you know, I mean, not all the first record sounds like that. You can see where I'm kind of like still have one foot in the old camp in a way and one foot in this new world.
Yeah.
So the first album's a little bit of an amalgamation in some ways, but, so I was so I was working on that and trying to, and I didn't know anyone in San Diego really. I just like would come off tour and just like not go out and meet anybody. And so I met this guy Ty, cause I realized I was terrible at congas and I needed somebody to come in and play congas. And he came in and then we hit it off and he added all the percussion to that first record. He introduced me to Matt Bazone, who's the drummer now. And then Matt is kind of that guy who knows everybody on the music scene. And then he brought in these guys that he played in a Latin band with, like a horn section. And
Right.
so all of a sudden we had horns. So the first record I was thinking of horn sections, but I was doing it with like 3 guitars.
Right.
I would just stack 3 guitars and try to play like what a horn might play,
Right.
which was cool. I like the way it sounds. I think it's interesting. But then we actually brought in real horns, and then it kind of evolved out of that. We played our first show in like 2016, I think. I bought a van shortly thereafter, and then we kind of started at the same formula as Grace Potter and the Nocturnals. Like the drummer booked show, and we had a booking agent, but he would get us like 9 gigs a year, kind of a thing. So if we wanted to tour, we kind of had to hustle ourselves.
Right.
So we booked our first national tour like ourselves between me and Matt, and just dug in, man, and played shows to like 6 people in Crested Butte, Colorado.
Yeah.
Like kind of how you have to do it.
Yeah.
And then kind of have grown from there. Luckily, now we have a manager and a booking agent, and we still do most of the stuff ourselves, but we don't do booking ourselves anymore, which is great.
Right.
And we haven't been doing publicity ourselves, which is great.
Yeah.
It's good to let go of some of that stuff, but we're still doing a lot of the marketing and website stuff and artwork and registering music, and
it's hard, isn't it?
So hard. Yeah. But luckily, the band really evolved into an actual band, and I was able to let go of a lot of stuff. I do a lot, but our sax keyboard player did all the artwork. The Barry sax keyboard player does all the stuff with the van, the upkeep and the merch, and the bass player does all the marketing, and we kind of all found our spot, and all pitch in.
Yeah. That's great, man. That's really great.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah.
I'm grateful, and I realized that's it's a fortunate relationship,
Right. There's kind of a scene that isn't exactly what you're doing, but it would go well with you, but there seems to be like this sort of world music is such a broad name for it, but there's a lot of like Latin bands, a lot of like Colombian cumbia bands that are inspired, and also like through like West African kind of funk and like kind of the thing that was happening in the 70s in West Africa,
Mm-hmm.
And there seems to be a kind of a movement going of that here, like
cool.
Yeah, and I was wondering if is there some kind of scene like that in San Diego where there are other bands that not necessarily doing exactly what you're doing, but something that's from the same family tree?
Yeah, there definitely was.
Yeah.
There's some like-minded bands, and some of the musicians kind of in my band will still play in one or two of those bands periodically. There's definitely some crossover. There's a band, Surefire Soul Ensemble, that is a little more like straight up 70s funk. What else? There's this band, The Routine. They were kind of doing some elements of world music combined with like rock and roll.
Right.
Yeah, I could probably think of probably 4 or 5 bands that are kind of like barking up a similar tree.
There seems to be kind of like a movement of that, of culturally mixing all those styles.
I mean, that was
great.
kind of my thought behind the group, was I was thinking a lot about like Memphis, in the way of like, how did rock and roll start,
Right.
and where did it come from? It came from a cross section of regions and people,
Right.
of like rockabilly, Apple, mountain music, African-American music, soul, blues, all this stuff kind of like mashed together. And I like, that's exciting.
Right.
So it's kind of like, well, where are we now? It's like, we've already mashed a lot of things together here in the United States. So it's like, why not look outside the borders? Like, what's next? it's like we're not traveling to these other regions as much, or maybe a little bit, but now it's like we have the internet. Right. So it's like, you can go listen to, Indian music and then listen to, Balkan music.
Right.
And it's funny how like you go explore some of that stuff and just, I love Indian music. It's great, but it's like, it didn't draw me in enough to like study it or listen to it time and time again. For some reason, Fela Kuti's music was like, there was just a draw there for me.
Yeah.
There's just something about it that was just like, I get this.
Yeah.
Like, I love this. I need to listen to it again and again and again.
Yeah.
And I can play this, that's too, like as a musician.
Right.
We kind of like go with what comes easy, or like,
some of us
right?
do. Yeah. I'm one of those people. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, what am I good at? Like that's probably what I'm going to do. And I was good at understanding how the parts of that music kind of went together,
Right.
So
yeah,
that's kind of the way I think about it, or like what excited me about it was like, let's try to make something new that like maybe hasn't been made before, or let's at least try, like, maybe it's not, I'm not going to hit it on the mark, but like it's a noble pursuit.
Of course. Yeah. And eventually whatever comes out is uniquely you,
Yeah. In hindsight.
Yeah. You've definitely found a voice, in the progression of the 3 records. And I guess people will be able to hear this. What's the single that's out now?
A song called Wake Up.
Wake Up. That's right.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll play that on here. But you definitely have found your voice more, like as a person critically listening and trying to find what your journey is, like in preparation for this conversation. I definitely saw like, okay, they definitely found their voice, or he's found his voice.
Yeah. I start the mission with this band is like, the rhythm needs to be exciting. Yeah. So I would start with an exciting rhythm, so it's just kind of like, that's the first thing I start with.
Yeah.
So it can be just percussion, or it can be just a drum beat, or both,
Right.
But it has to be something that's like propulsive. And then, so from there, I can kind of do anything, or that's the way I look at it, and so from there, I think at first I was kind of even keeping some of the instrumentation a little more closer to home with Afrobeat stuff.
Right.
And then over the next 2 records, I think I've explored a little more and tried to stretch those boundaries a little bit.
Right.
And I also kind of was like, wanted to put something with some like depth on top of it. The other thing that I was like, being in the jam band world, and like, there was a huge funk movement in the jam band world.
Yeah.
But at a certain point, it's like what was on top of it just started to feel like McDonald's.
Yeah.
It was like, smells good in the moment, but it doesn't leave me with any like nutrition.
Yeah.
It was like all that stuff of like, it ain't nothing but a party.
Yeah.
And I was kind of like, I don't feel like, I don't want to sing that personally.
Right.
Like, I don't connect to that. I connect to like, Townes Van Zandt.
Yeah.
That's a songwriter that I connect with. So it's like, how can I bring Townes Van Zandt into Afrobeat?
Well, that's, that's the thing that definitely sets you apart from, I don't know what these other bands are doing over there, or any other bands outside of Austin that I hear like that, is that they are like a pop song structure.
Yeah. So, that's the goal. I never really felt as comfortable being up there with an acoustic guitar singing a song like Townes Van Zandt. It just didn't come easy. It was like, oh, this is awkward. I don't want to tell these stories in between the song.
Right.
Like, I'm just not this guy. I'm not this like acoustic guitar singer-songwriter guy with all this charisma. It's not really the way I'm built, So, but I love writing songs, and I love songs that like are, impactful emotionally.
Yeah.
The songwriters I like are like, Lucinda Williams and Bob Dylan and Jeff Tweedy, which is all kind of heavy stuff.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So it's not like Saturday night party music, but I kind of like, so this was like my sneaky way to like write those kinds of songs and still be able to get the Saturday night gig.
Yeah. Well, you hit the nail on the head, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great, great record.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
So you're a dad?
I am, yeah.
How many kids do you have?
I have one son. His name's Quinn, and he's 4.
All right.
Yeah, so I'm just figuring it all out.
Did you have to do a lot of
game changer?
I bet this last year you had a lot of explaining you were doing.
On some level, it's funny how quickly kids adapt, you know?
Yeah.
We had him do like a T-ball thing, and all the kids were wearing masks and stuff, and it was like we were marveling at like how none of the kids really took off their mask or complained about it, or like it wasn't an issue.
Right.
You know, like they were more mature about it than the grown-ups, really.
I can see that.
So, yeah, the kids are pretty amazing in that regard. I mean, it's been more of like I've been a stay-at-home dad because my wife's business, actually did a little bit better in the face of the pandemic. And
wow.
then, all my gigs are gone. So I was like, well, I'm staying at home, like, making lunches and filling up sippy cups.
How's that been?
So, I mean, and honestly, it's been challenging. It's been beautiful. There's things about it, that I'm thankful for. I think we've gotten like super close, and I think I'll always I'll look back on this time and miss it when it's gone. But like in the moment, I mean, ask any parent really, it's like, it can be hard, it's like being a selfish musician for like a 20 years. It was a shakeup. It was like, wait, so I have to think about somebody else rather than chin stroking about combining musical genres.
Right. Exactly.
That's good. That was good for me.
Well, good, man. So how far do you guys tour, like the whole nation, or do you just kind of tour California regionally? Or
we go for the gold.
Oh yeah.
We, in some ways, probably have more success on the East Coast and kind of the Southeast, because it's just a tricky place. Like we do well in San Diego, but then LA's, who knows what LA is? It's like an abyss. Yeah. It's just a weird, you can't really build an organic audience in LA.
Yeah.
It's just tricky. So we kind of almost jump LA and go to San Francisco, which is a huge drive. Honestly, we would start tours and we would go to Austin first.
Oh, really?
So we've played Austin a fair amount of times. We've played the Sahara Lounge.
Oh yeah. Kind of our spot. I love that place. Yeah. That's Topaz's place, right?
You got it. Yeah. But we deal with his mom, who plays bass in the house band. Yeah. So we played a bunch of those nights. It's awesome. She's in her 60s and just laying down fucking these heavy bass lines into the wee hours of the morning.
Yeah, she didn't fuck around, man.
It's awesome. Yeah, she's been really cool to us, and so we've played there. So we would drive for 2 days, and get to Austin and kind of start there, and then kind of shoot off from there. Right. So we go up to all the way to Vermont, and we have gigs in New Hampshire, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania, and New York City, all lined up for August.
Okay, great. So are you coming to Austin in August?
I'm not sure yet. Yeah, I don't think, it kind of depends. We're trying to figure out right now if we're going to route through Colorado in the middle of the country or come down through south. It kind of depends, where the best money gig kind of can lead us through, and then you branch off of that, as you know.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I hope so. We're planning on actually doing our first South by next spring.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, which I haven't done in years because we did 2 with the Nocturnals.
You did?
And I always had a good time. It was fun. Man.
Yeah. We should do one of these in person when you come down for South by Southwest.
I'd love to, man. What part of town are you in?
I'm right next to downtown, just south of the river. Sorry, just south of 35, just east of the river, like on Riverside.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
So what do you, I guess I don't know what else you do besides the podcast. Like,
I'm a musician.
I'm sure you've done a lot. I think I put that together.
I have my own band and put out my own stuff, but I also play in this crazy party band called Skyrocket, like 70s and 80s cover band. And I work with this this nonprofit here called the Austin Music Foundation as a mentor in their artist development program, and I do this podcast. And I write with people and play with a lot of different people. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I listened to an episode of your podcast. I love podcasts.
Oh, cool.
It's like my favorite thing to listen to. So I was checking out, spacing out on who it was, but I enjoyed the episode. It was cool. You guys were getting into all the nitty gritty of the music stuff, and I appreciated that.
Yeah, man. Well, good. Thank you, man.
While I was washing dishes, I was listening.
Well, I'm honored, man. Thank you so much for listening. Man, thanks for doing the show. This record Telescope comes out on August 20th, and you can just go to electricvoodoo.com to find out. You don't have any dates up yet. That's why I asked if you guys were going on tour. So as soon as there are dates up, you guys will be able to check it out and see these guys when they hit the road. It's been great talking to you, man. Is there anything I'm missing?
Yeah, you too, Johnny. No, we covered a lot. It was great.
Yeah, it was great talking to you, man.
Thanks for listening to the album. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. I'll be listening to it more, man.
We'll do that.
It's fucking great.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks, Johnny.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you, man. Yeah,
nice to meet you.
We'll link up in Austin.
Yeah, man, for sure. Take care. Stay in touch.
Maybe. All right, buddy.
All right, man.
Good talking to you.
Bye. All right, that's Scott Tournét from Elektric Voodoo. Check out their album Telescope, drops August 20th, but check out the single Telescope out now, wherever it is you stream and download your jams. Go to electricvoodoo.com for all of your Elektric Voodoo needs. What a great conversation. I really enjoyed talking to him. Scott Tournét, man. Cool dude, baby. Cool dude. Elektric Voodoo, cool band. Find them at electricvoodoo.com. And gang, when you're out there checking out electricvoodoo.com, don't forget that you can subscribe to this podcast wherever it is you find podcasts, be it Apple Podcasts, Spotify, TuneIn, Overcast, Stitcher, and of course the Podbean app, where you can access all 1,066 episodes of How Did I Get Here. That's the Podbean app. Find them at podbean.com, or just download the Podbean app from your app store. All right, let's hear the rest of this song, Telescope, from the album Telescope. The single's out, but the record comes out on August 20th. This is Elektric Voodoo. Have a great week. Let's get down.
You know,